What's up, Al?
Hello. That it's really ironic. If that's the right term. That guy that you had on in the video. I think I just saw a couple videos of his because I saw a video earlier today. Light skin historian, I think his name is. I had
Yeah,
seen a
yeah.
video of his and a couple of videos, and then I came across this guy. The guy who was in the video, not the Blaxican guy, the other guy. What's his name?
Ricardo Ignacio. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know his name, and I saw a couple videos. You know what I think this guy is? He's what I call a professional ally. You know what I
Oh,
mean by
most
that?
definitely. Nah, most definitely. Grifter for sure. Yeah.
Right. Well, he could be a grifter, but what I mean by is you have people that are very interested in other ethnic groups, right? So what happens is someone like that, like this guy, I don't know a thing about this guy. What'd you say? Ricardo was his name? Now, here's the thing that you have to kind of wonder. Like, okay, this guy's Mexican, but he's constantly talking about African Americans and so forth. And it's like, okay, you're not talking about it from a cultural standpoint. Like, you're not talking about music, you're not talking about movies, you're not talking about sports, you're not talking about anything that people from other ethnic groups would get interested in as a kind of way of dealing with African Americans. So what he's probably interested in is probably, I bet, black women. He probably is really into black women. And
Yeah.
so,
I think his girlfriend, one of his girlfriends was like a Dominican mixed kind of Afro Latina black, which yeah, black women are attractive. I like black.
yeah,
I
well,
like
see,
all women.
that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
but
that's why I think he's doing that. That's
for the
part of
whole
it.
brand, I don't know, man. For the whole brand, why would he like risk his whole brand and personality just for like a specific demographic? Like, if is his heart really into it? What that he just likes black women? Yeah, I mean, I guess like
That may be a part of it. It also, I've noticed this over the years before I got on biracial groups or even on YouTube biracial. It's just something I've noticed in general.
I just
You
noticed
when
Al.
you
I
go
just
ahead.
noticed you're commenting on two different channels. That's hilarious. You're on
Yeah.
two different
Oh, you
channels.
got me. They got me.
I
No.
caught you.
What happened
I
is,
caught you.
go ahead.
Hey, no,
What
I
happened is,
well,
go ahead.
another too. I caught your live earlier, man. I want to tell you, I really appreciate the live you had earlier on biracial topics with the whole light skin black and the mulatto or biracial situation. I really like how you eloquently laid it out. I really appreciate the live you had earlier. I know you put all your videos on private and stuff like that, but you laid it out perfectly. Like that's the
Mhm.
thing is that like we're not part of their group, their community. And
Right.
us, if
Oh,
we get
it's
go ahead. Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. Well, see, the reason I did that was this. I again, it has to do with a video. Just like with this Ricardo guy. Okay, that's part of the reason I'm up here. I saw a video from, I don't know her name, Ginger for You or whatever her name is. And she did like a couple of videos. And I guess a lot of people came to when she had done something about light skin and biracials getting together, or maybe they should get together, or maybe they should do that. She got, I guess, a lot of response for her channel. I guess she wasn't used to that because it sounded like she wasn't. And so here's what the reason why I explained that, and I don't put out live streams, I don't put out any videos. My channel's defunct. But the reason why I explained that on her channel, and I know there were a bunch of people that went on because she mentioned, I think she's been on your channel before. Someone called Renata Mulata, I think.
Oh yeah, she's
Um,
amazing. She's
yeah,
amazing. I really respect her. Renata Mulata, yeah.
right. I guess she had left a response, but then deleted it or whatever. Um, so here's the problem. So let me just go over this briefly before getting back to this. Here was the problem with the video. I think the woman meant well, and I guess she was in your chat at one point. for one of the lives. Here's the problem, and you mentioned this earlier at one point. The so-called light-skinned people are essentially identified as African Americans. They're essentially identified as black people
Yeah, they identify
because,
as black. That like,
yeah,
it's different. They're not the
because they
same as
are
biracial.
essentially, although they're mixed race, they're essentially black people.
That's how they
Uh,
identify. Yeah.
right, right. So when they go through the whole light skin taunting and teasing and attacks and put downs and disrespect, they don't have a recourse other than those that I'm aware of who call themselves like MGM, right? The multi generationally mixed. And there's some of those that are just going, look, we're just mixed race. We don't really see ourselves as black people. We don't really see ourselves as European. We don't really see ourselves as native or anything else. We're just multi generationally mixed. We're just mixed people, right? So that's the only outlet that they would really have. Because they are considered, quote, light skin, which is a terrible phrase. I don't like that phrase, but hey, that's what that's used. Because they're considered that, but because they're African American or considered Black Americans, there's no recourse to them other than to just say, I'm mixed race. And I don't know how many of them would actually do that. Some might, but most won't. So their only recourse is within the African American or the Black American community. And they therefore have to deal with Black Americans. They're at some point, maybe it's on an individual level. I don't know if this can be done collectively, but you're going to have to deal with people in your community, in your neighborhoods, in that, and personally, and deal with that. Biracial people, on the other hand, and the guy, Blaxican guy, who was on that video, he kind of tapped into this as well. Years ago, when I first started coming on mixed race groups on Facebook, I was told by biracial guys, black guys in general, or a number of black guys, they do not consider mixed race guys black. They don't see you as black.
But
They
they
don't see
consider
you
the
as that.
women as black. This is the kind of
Yeah, it's one
schism.
of the differences.
This is the schism we see. They don't see the men. I mentioned that. That's why they hate Drake. They don't want Drake to represent dark skinned masculinity in hip hop. And they don't want Steph Curry to represent dark skinned masculinity within the sports and basketball world. So they don't like the men. They don't want the men to represent dark skinned masculinity, but they don't have that energy for the women. All of a sudden, when it's a light skinned female woman like a Halle Berry or Zendaya, you name it, they all of a sudden it changes. They're like, oh, well, that's a black woman. She's got a black dad. Oh, so she's black. But then when it's the man, if the man has a black dad, they're like, oh, well, you were raised with the white woman in a white community. You ain't down with the hood like us. So that's the game they play. I'm trying to get these younger mulattoes to wake up and smell the coffee to build their own shit. Like there's enough mulattoes now. You guys can just click up and develop your own networks. It's really ridiculous to play games with these people. Go ahead.
Well, it's bait and switch. And so one of the things that I've said this elsewhere, there's a space that's operative within African American communities for mixed race females, for mixed race women. Um, they not only allow mixed race women to be considered African American, they insist upon it, depending on the communities and depending on the individuals.
Well, they pressure
And,
them, and that's what El Blackskin guy was saying. They kind of pressure them, like even Phil Advice show. I've done numerous streams where he was trying to get Tyla, the South African colored woman. The Phil Advice show was trying to tell her, oh, she needs to get right with Black Americans and learn about Black American culture and be black, right? And he did a stream about a Creole lady trying to shame the Creole lady, saying, well, these Creoles, they're colorist because they wanted to mix with each other and to maintain their color. And the same Phil Advice show did a stream about Dominican woman. They always try to pressure these mixed race women, whether they're Creole, Dominican, or colored in South Africa. They try to pressure them to identify as black so they can bastardize them. They're always attacking the women. But with the men, see, they're not even going to try us like that because they already know what time it is. They don't look at us as being there. Right. Go ahead.
There's no space for biracial men in African American communities. In other words, there's no. It's like a parking. Think about a parking lot, right? Like some people have parking spaces for themselves and they work at a company. For the biracial women, there's a parking space for them in a sense in this parking lot. If you want to see African American community as such, right? It's parking space for them. Whereas if you're a biracial guy, you got to go up and down that lot looking for a slot. You got to look for a space because there's not going to be one reserved for you, right? No reserved spaces for you. You got to find your own space. So that's something. And again, I was told that by biracial guys online. That's how I found out about it. So that's the way it operates. And so when, for the most part, like I said, again, for me, it's academic. I didn't grow up in African American communities, so I didn't find out about this stuff till I was like in my 40s. I mean, by then, I kind of lived life. I mean, I'm kind of used to,
I have a quick
you know,
question for you.
go,
So, when
go.
did you start getting involved in the biracial spaces on Facebook? Was it like a decade ago, 10 years ago? How old were you at that time when you started getting involved in
Um,
biracial spaces?
it was 15 years ago.
Interesting. So, how old were you at
Yeah,
that time?
40. I was
Interesting.
I was 40, 40 years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it
Way
was.
before me.
Yeah. It was quite a while ago. What happened was I was on YouTube and I saw a documentary trailer. It wasn't a documentary. It was a trailer for a documentary called "I'm Biracial, Not Black." Damn it, I forget who the filmmaker is. I'm not aware of it. I saw that. That changed everything. That literally changed everything because that is what made me seek out biracial people and biracial groups, and I guess created everything. I
You
guess you
want to
could say
know?
that's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's good to hear. I appreciate you sharing that. Like, and I can say for me, what kind of helped open my eyes up was when I moved to San Diego. When I moved to San Diego to finish up my college degree, and I started to navigate more into black spaces, black neighborhoods. I lived in a black neighborhood, predominantly black neighborhood, but still navigating black spaces even on campus, the university I attended, and it really opened up my eyes. I was like, damn, like these are not my people. It really opened up my eyes. This is like around 2019. I always talk about like my epiphany moment and my awakening. I realized, oh shit, these are not my people. Like, and I sympathize with them. I saw what was going on, and but they helped me realize that I'm not a part of their group. I'm not a part of their family. And I was in San Diego around 2019. And it was through
Interesting.
physical. It wasn't online. I mean, there was some stuff online. I'd see some comments, and even with the like anti-mulatto hysteria, I'd see some like irritated genie, but I kind of chuckled at it, irritated genie, because to my understanding, I was kind of like, well, he's an outlier. He's kind of a radical. Like he's not most of these black people. That's how I perceived it. But the stuff that's promulgated through the airwaves on the internet, people off the internet, they take it to heart. So it's like I started seeing like similar sentiments and negativity and ostracization like on the college campus and different groups and different networks dealing with black people. And I was like, damn, like the cold shoulder and the negativity. And I was like, interesting, interesting. So
Yeah.
I
What?
woke up around 2019. Go ahead.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Irritated Genie. I've heard that name before. I don't know if I've seen him on YouTube or come across him on YouTube. Is he like anti-mulatto, anti-biracial? Is he one of those?
Yeah, he's hardcore. He's one of his spearheads because his hero and his intellectual thought leader is Chancellor Williams. So he's one of the
Oh,
biggest proponents of the Chancellor Williams anti-mulatto conspiracy theories. That's his whole branding. is basically anti-mulatto. He's one of those guys. He's branded himself as that. And so he's one of the main ones who's anti-mulatto out of all these
I
other
yeah,
Afrocentrics. Yeah.
now that I'm thinking about it, I probably did maybe see one or two things because that name is familiar. Not too much, but maybe a couple things.
Check out
Because
this
if
comment.
he's good,
No, go ahead. Finish up your thoughts. Go ahead.
oh, okay. I probably came across one or two videos that he did because I know there was one guy he was promoting. He was clearly anti-mulatto, anti-biracial, anti-mixed race, and he was like doing slides somewhere. I don't know, it was some presentation
There's a lot of
somewhere,
them.
and
Yeah. There's
yeah.
a lot of them that popped up over the years. And they haven't been checked. And that's why I'm here now, because we have to challenge them. Like yesterday, I did a stream with a guy who did a video a couple years ago, but they're very confident. Even the dummies, even like the ghetto kind of pro-black
Oh
dummies,
yeah, that idiot.
they,
Yeah, that guy
because
sounded drunk and stupid.
he
I
could barely
literally wrote
read.
that.
He could barely
I
read.
mean, we sounded illiterate,
But the
like
thing
gutter
is, it's like
illiterate.
they're very cocky now. So even the dummies of the black group, the lower class, dummy, uneducated black people, they're very cocky and emboldened now to talk, and they're smearing mulattoes. That's why it's important for us to have our media to challenge the rhetoric. Check out this comment here. There's a colored gentleman here. He puts, the people who are referred and labeled as light skinned often lack the support and community backing that mulattoes and multiracial have. So they are
Hmm.
often left to suffer at the hands of Bantus. I agree with him. What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting. You know, that sort of taps slightly, not entirely dovetails, but that was part of what I've been talking about because of that lady Ginger for you. I don't know her name.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but what they don't understand is, again, the difference with, because I explained the so called light skin, with the biracial and multiracial people, again, what what they have is the ability not only to cite their ancestry and their heritage and all that to people and say, I'm this, that, and the other thing, but they have the ability to say, look, if this community doesn't accept me, I'll try another community. Now they may not like you either, but at least you've got another community. And one of the things I'd say for any multiracial or biracial person is don't ever, besides not identifying as one race or one ethnicity or whatever, which I don't think is a good idea, obviously. Always try to have multiple communities. They don't have to be ethnic or racial, but multiple communities that you can belong to. So it doesn't have to be ethnic or racial. It could be some hobby you're into, or it could be professional, or it could be something else. But you want to get away, you want to be in a community where you can be accepted or at least coexist with people and be relaxed and comfortable. And so I think what I'm seeing with the people that are light skinned is they may not have that within the Black American communities. I don't know because you know I can only go by what I've seen in videos and presentations and news or whatever. But with multiracial and biracial people, again, some of them have choices. They can go to other ethnic and racial communities, and they
yeah.
can go, okay,
We have options, right, Al? We have
precisely,
options. Yeah,
exactly, yeah,
yeah. And even you mentioned, even like say, because your hobbies, like say, the Trekkies, right? Like you have
yeah, I like Star
multiple
Trek, yeah.
hobbies and interest where you can
Hmm.
venture off and network with people and other groups where it's like you'll be good. You can develop
Oh
a
yeah.
community with them, right? And I think that's the key thing you mentioned earlier. I really appreciate your live earlier. A lot of people over here, I got about 40 people in the chat listening, viewers. They might have not like tuned into your live, but you had a live stream earlier on one of your channels, and I was tuning in because I'm subscribed. I have my notification bell on for your channel, and when you do biracial topics, like I said, you've been in these like mulatto or biracial spaces for 15 years before me. So I really like the information that you, in your perspective, that you share. I respect that. and I saw your video, even if you do a little spew that's 15, 20 minutes, like there's a lot of nuggets in there and information that you espouse that's very crucial and that I resonate with because it's like you're right. Like the main difference is like you mentioned with this ginger person, and I never responded to her because it's like this is pointless. Like she is stuck in the African American community. She said in her video, where it's like, well, that's just the way it is. She was saying that, well, yeah, black people, dark skinned people make jokes about light skinned people, but that's just the way it is. For me, I don't accept that. I'm a biracial man, a mulatto man. To me, if someone hates me or disrespects me, if they're white or black, I just get the hell away from them. I find my own community. And that they she can't
Right,
do that. She can't do that. She's stuck with black people. And that's the difference between mulatto Americans, biracial people, and light-skinned black Americans is that they're stuck with black people. That's their community. That's all they know. And that's the
right.
major difference. And you pointed that out eloquently on your live stream. And I appreciate that. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your kind words about it. And again, so that's why I said earlier, because it's just simply who they are. I mean, that's who they identify with. So the problem is we can't. There's nothing that we as multiracial and biracial people can do. Now there may be some biracial people who are in the black communities who consider themselves black that may want to help the light so-called light skin and so forth. But for the most part, there's nothing we could do because, and this is borne out by some of what was stated, not only that Blaxican guy said with this Ricardo guy, but also what we've been talking about. If we're talking about biracial men, we are not considered part of the black community. This might be considered controversial to some, but it's not really. It's just the way it is. Nobody wants to bring this out. I mean, even though it's clearly the case, it's clearly the case. And so biracial guys are not really considered African American. They're not really considered Black American. They're not considered part of that community because they don't really see them as fellow Black people. Now, it's very interesting. This is something else I wanted to kind of share with you. I was on YouTube, and for some reason, some channel popped up in my algorithm. I don't know what it was. I think it was called Black Betterment Broadcast. Have you heard of this channel?
No, I've never heard of it. Sorry.
Yeah, I hadn't either. So it came up. I was there. It was very interesting. They were doing something called, and this is the only reason that I looked at it, Black biracial bonding and something else. I'm like, what does that mean? And these were people in the UK. And they were trying to say that, because they had a guy up there who was mixed race, but he was one of these pro-blacks, or pro-black, I guess he was Pan-African maybe. And so this is in the UK and everything. So I'm in the chat. I end up doing this, and it's kind of interesting because I know in the UK that you have a substantial number of mixed race people. It was like 1 in 10 according to statistics, or that you have a significant number of them, right? But these people, I mean, they even had like a bunch of people they put up in some graphic, and they said, well, the Black diaspora, not diaspora, maybe it was diaspora, but Black individuals comprise a number of people. So for them, they were like, oh, we want to build and we want to construct and we want to do things. And there was this guy in the chat, Foster. Have you heard of him? But he was in the chat. But it was interesting. Like, I didn't go on their panel or anything like that. I was just in the chat. But there was a guy who went up, and his name was Pro Mulatto or something. I don't know who he is. But he was going up there, and he was trying to answer these guys and try to And he was trying to say, instead of identifying yourself as black or try to do that, why don't you simply identify yourself as what you are, which is mulatto, which is mixed race, and do what you can to build up mulatto and mixed race people. Now, again, I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen him before, but he was making some decent arguments. Even I had to admit he was making some decent arguments to these guys. But these were people that saw mixed race people as part of the African community. And the problem is that, to my knowledge, that's not the case in African nations. Now, mixed race people can be African citizens, right? Citizens of the country. But there's a very clear delineation in African nations. Like, you go to South Africa, the colored are completely different from, I'll just say, African people. In fact, they will state the term African. I think there was a guy in South Africa even that was put on trial for calling himself an African. I think he saw himself as black and called himself African. He's put on trial because he was violating some law or something. I don't know what it was. But in South Africa, for example, they cannot consider a colored person to be black. And you have these colored people that go and say, oh, I'm culturally colored, but I'm politically black. Like, what does that mean? I mean, I'm not an expert in South African. I mean, I know a good deal about South Africa, but I'm like, how can you be culturally one thing and politically another thing? Even mixed race people in this country don't do that. It's just not the case. But the point that I was making is with this thing that I came across is ultimately, and here's another part of this aspect, right? This is the UK, so I think there are some people who are either Black Americans, or maybe in the UK it's a little different, but there's some people that want to see mixed race people, probably more women than men, but mixed race people as black because they think they're doing a solid. Like, they think they're being tolerant and they're doing the right thing, and they're trying to have solidarity, and they're trying to, like, they think it's that they're doing something that's good and positive. And what they don't understand is that doesn't really work for mixed race people. If we talk about the US, we just aren't considered. This is the dirty little secret, and this is the thing that people just don't want to deal with. Mixed race men right off the bat are just not considered black men. They're just not. And ultimately, biracial men and women are really not a part of Black American communities. They're just not a part. That's why they're different from the so-called light skin. Because at the end of the day, Black Americans will definitively say and do at times to mixed race people, what they will do is they'll say, look, you're not really one of us. You're not really part of the community. You're not really, you're different. You're not black enough. You're not this. That's what will ultimately happen. I remember years ago when I was on Facebook, there was a guy on one of the threads who said, there will come a day when black people will tell you you're not black. And at that instant, I knew he was right. Now, that wasn't an issue that I had to face because I, again, was raised in a multicultural, multiracial environment. So I've always been a biracial person and always been a mixed race person. But for those that are raised in black communities or raised in black American communities or raised in other kind of communities, it's hard for them because that's why some of these women and some guys, they try so hard to fit in as black people, but you're trying to fit into a community that ultimately doesn't see you as part of their community. It's different with the so-called light-skinned people. Yeah, they may call them names and put them down and so forth, but they kind of see them as part of the community. They may
Exactly.
resent them, but they see them as part of the community. And I think that's what they have to understand. Like those biracial people, they don't get it. The guy Blaxican, whatever his name was,
Yeah,
that
black
was on
skin
the
guy.
video, Blaxican
Uh-huh.
guy,
Yep.
he understood obviously, probably because of his experiences. He gets that.
He doesn't
And
look like
so,
them. And I
yeah.
mean, I could go back to the comment section. I know I kind of jumped on with the panel and stuff. I initially was like, oh, I could check out the comments and stuff like that. But we could say the same thing about them. And then they cry and complain racism and colorism and, anti-black. I'm just pointing that out. I'm not going to go into all the comments, like I said, but there's a bunch of comments. They're talking about how the guy's confused and all this other dumb shit. Look, we don't look the same as them. We're not the same people. That's the issue that with the whole biracial and the light skin shit. As you mentioned, you had a stream earlier. Biracial people, once we feel the disrespect and we see what they're doing, we just get the hell away from them. We're not the same as these people. But the light skinned people, like, see, they have nowhere else to go. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of their
Right.
community. They have nowhere else to go, so they have to cope and deal with the reality that darker
Right.
skinned Bantus are easy. That's the main thing there. I'm gonna
And
finish
that's
this
why
up
they get
out.
so frustrated. That's why they get so frustrated. But here's another important point when you look at those comments. This is something else I've said to people sometimes. You have to understand within African American communities and Black American communities, there is outright hatred and loathing and 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 racism against mixed race people. And I'm going to continue to use that word racism. There are just simply people within those communities who do not like you, in fact, hate you. And you got to be very careful. This is why I've told some of these biracials who insist on uh, identifying as African American and black. I've said, you're playing a game, you can do what you want, but when things go wrong and they don't treat you right, or you are badly treated and things happen to you that you wish didn't happen to you, what are you going to do? You're going to come crying to biracial people? I don't think that's going to help you. Again, you have to understand there are people. I mean, it's easy to go and say, and that's one of the tactics they use is what did they call it? What did I call it? Uh, I forgot. That's what I called it. But it's always, oh well, white people don't see you as
As
one of
white,
their own.
it
Yeah,
doesn't
they
matter.
see
We don't
that
look
as a
black
tactic.
either. We don't look black
Right,
either.
right. So you see that as a tactic. So that's a tactic. It's like, oh, they don't see you as that, and I'm like, well, why is that important to you? That's what I would go and say. In my case, I could go, well, I could probably be seen that way if I wanted to. Now, with others, maybe not, but in my case, I could probably, possibly. But, the reality is that why does that bother you? Or why do you think that has any importance to biracial people? Why do they need to be seen that way? Right. So at the end of the day, what it is a matter of limiting options. Because if you are, and this is a problem for biracial men especially. Like I said, we used the parking lot metaphor, right? There's a reserved space for the biracial females often, but for the biracial men, You got to go circle that parking lot and you got to find a space that's open and then try to fit.
That we are not a part of their group. That's it. I'm gonna close this
Yeah,
out,
that's what
pal.
I was
Go
told
ahead.
by biracial people.
Yeah.
Good. I was told that again when I was first told that. I was told it by biracial guys on social media groups, biracial social media groups. That's how I found out about it. I didn't find out about it the hard way because I wasn't in that circumstance. I didn't find out about it through other means, from say African Americans themselves or whatever. I found out about it from biracial people. So, again, the comments tell you a lot there, and they tell you,
There's
that's
a lot of black
why one of
women.
the
There's a
yeah,
lot of sorry to cut you off, but
no,
there's
go
a
ahead.
lot of black women in those comment sections who are calling that man confused. But it's like, what's their political motive? Why do they care how that man identifies? That man specifically said, yeah, they accept the women, but it's the men, that the dark skinned males, they don't look at them as look at us as being a part of their group. Why is it that there's black women, African American women, that have an issue with that reality? That's very interesting. They're all up in the comments calling the man confused and shit. There's nothing confusing. We just dissected the entire dialogue.
Right.
And the mulatto, the mixed men over here, we have a man from South Africa, a colored man across the damn globe who agrees with us. We have people around the planet who see what's going on, who agree with us. So we're not crazy. We're not confused. We can articulate these arguments, in a fashion that is professional and academic. So we're not the ones who are out of pocket here. Right? That's the thing. Like, the black community, and the thing is, the saddest part about it is, like I mentioned when I first started to stream, I'm a mulatto man, a biracial identified man. My audience, they're mixed race. This man, you see the comment I highlighted, he's a colored man, multiracial man in South Africa. You, the Al Show, you're a mulatto man, biracial man in Hawaii. My audience is primarily composed of mixed race people. I am a spokesperson, a voice here in this space. Ricardo Ignacio cannot say the same thing. He is a Mexican man with a primarily black audience. Something's not adding up here. Who's the fugazi person? Who's the phony? Who's the fraud? Who's the grifter?
Right. So here's what I would say to that Ricardo. Uh, I don't know his last name, but Ricardo guy. Here's
Ignacio,
what I
yeah.
would say, Ignacio. I don't know if you're a self-hating Mexican guy or self-hating Latino or not terribly interested. What I would say is this: when it comes to mixed race people, biracial people, multiracial people, you don't know what you're talking. Like whatever your audience is and whatever you're interested in, if your audience is monoracial, fine by me. That's fine by me. I don't really care. But when it comes to us, mixed race, biracial, multiracial people, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just another confused person who probably believes the one drop rule. We don't identify as anything. Those of us who are rational and properly identify and live openly as biracial, multiracial people, we are doing what we're supposed to do. You're supposed to be what you are. I don't believe ethnicity and race are the biggest factors in life, but they seem to be big in this country. But we're properly identifying and being who we are, which is mixed race people. And if you can't accept that, who cares? We don't care what you think of us, and we don't care what you think we should do. We don't care that other people may see us a certain way. Other people don't know what we are. That's why they ask, "Who are you?" So when it comes to mixed race people, when it comes to biracial people, you should just shut your mouth. Just keep on grifting and keep on kissing butt and keep on doing what you're gonna do. But leave biracial people alone. Because he did a live where there was that thing, a black white biracial woman, and this was one of these people that was talking about how her mother was, one of these Caucasian mother situations where she said a Caucasian mother was racist and all of that. So this is another aspect. I just want to briefly mention this before I go. Like, there are biracial people who have got family issues and problems and all that. It's unfortunate, but it's a part of life. It can be part of what biracial people have to go through. The problem is when they take their screwed up, messed up family life and try to make it seem like it's the norm for all mixed race people. It isn't. Okay? Yeah, you went through family trauma. Sad, sorry to hear that. But that's your problem. It's not our problem. So we don't come from that screwed up family tree that you came from, or family problem that lady came from. So what you're trying to do, what that woman who was on Ricardo's video, I don't know her name or whatever, what she was a self-hating biracial and an anti-biracial mixed race woman. That's what she is. And she probably doesn't like interracial relationships because of her family. And so people like this Ricardo, they like talking to mixed race people like that because they want to be black identified. But and that never works for biracial people. We just explained to you why it doesn't work for biracial men, because they're not accepted by African American men, by Black American men. They're not accepted. This is why I said biracial people aren't part of Black American communities. They're not part of African American communities.